children. We are back again this week, and I thank God that He has kept us alive and well, and we are here back for our Bible club. And today, I just want to thank God for giving me another opportunity to be able to come here so that we can be able to listen to another story. I know last week you had a great time with a movie about Jonah, and I want to say this week we are going to do something different. And this week we want to talk about the things that are impossible for us to do, but they are very much possible for God to do them. Have you ever tried something that is so hard for you to do and you think that it can never, ever work? Well, today I will tell you another story. My name is Mama Kisumu, and I love Jesus with all of my heart. I can never give him up for anything because he is the best friend that I ever have. Now, today my story, as you have heard, is based on, can God do what is impossible for man to do? Yes, God can do what you think is impossible for you to do. Yeah? Like what? For example, sometimes you may want to do something. Maybe for those of us who live near the lake, you may want to go to the other side of the lake, but you are afraid because you do not know what is in the waters. And if you've never really ever tried going across even one time, you may be afraid of going across because you do not know. You'll be afraid of, could the boat sink? Could there be a crocodile? Could there be a shark? Anything. Fear. These are called giants. Giants are things that we imagine, and we think that they are so big and great, and they can do us a lot of harm. Many years ago, when I was growing up, I used to have my grandmother who went home to be with the Lord, and she would tell us stories about giants. And the way a girl would be sent to the river, and then she goes and decides to linger, and she has been told, don't linger in the river, but she decides to go and linger in the river. She wants to bathe, she wants to wash her clothes, she wants to just hang around. And then all the other girls go and they leave her in the river. And she's there lazing herself, and then the minute she decides to pick her pot of water to go home, then a giant appears. Imagine a giant. How does a giant look? Can you think about what a giant looks like? I can't imagine. A big head like a pumpkin, big hands, long legs, big eyes. Oh no, a giant must be a really ugly thing. But you know what? The most worst thing about a giant is that it is very, very fearful. When we were told those stories as young children, we used to get scared. We would be scared because we would think, oh, now the giant will come. But I thank God for Jesus because he helped me. And when I got saved, I discovered a way of conquering my giants, because my giants were really big. Fear, anger. I used to love disturbing people. Those are giants, okay? And some of us, little as you are, you have giants within yourselves. Can some of you give me examples of the giants that you have? Anger, yes. Jealousy, yes. Pride, yes. Some of these are big giants in your life, and you need to conquer them. But sometimes we think it is very impossible to conquer these giants. And we need help in order for us to do what? To conquer these giants. But you know the good thing with God, that there is nothing impossible for him that he cannot do. He can conquer those giants for us. Our story today is based on a little boy in the Old Testament who was a shepherd. And that little boy loved the Lord. He would go out there into the fields with his sheep, and he would sit down with his little guitar, and he would sing to the sheep. Have you ever even tried singing to your pet, your dog or your cat? Huh? And those of you who have goats at home and you have cows, have you ever tried singing to them? Let me tell you, that boy's name was called David. And David loved the Lord. And David was lastborn amongst many other boys. And his work was to go take the sheep to the fields for his father and stay there with them, take care of them, and then bring them back. But whenever there was drought, he would go much further away. And of course, that meant he would sleep there. And while he was there, you know what? There were other things that used to come and attack his sheep. Yes. And when they used to come, he would fight them. One day, a lion came and it grabbed his sheep, and he got up and he struck that lion. Another day, a bear came and it grabbed a sheep, and he stood up and he fought that bear. He was courageous, he was energetic, and he was not fearful. He did not fear anything. And he trusted in the Lord. He knew that his strength came from God. And that is why he could deal with any giant, no matter how it looked like. Whichever animal that came, he would deal with it. Today, I want us to read a little bit about the story of David. And I will read in the book of 1 Samuel, and chapter 17. And I will start from verse 1, but I will skip into bits so that I can be able to explain to you this story. Now, this is the way it goes. I hope you have your Bibles and a pencil, and you are able to tell this story to another. Now the Philistines gathered their forces for war and assembled at Socoh in Judah. They pitched camp at Ephes Dammim, between Socoh and Azekah. Saul and the Israelites assembled and camped in the valley of Elah, and drew up their battle line to meet the Philistines, and the Philistines occupied one hill, and the Israelites another, with the valley between them. Hey, have you heard that? There was war between the Philistines and the Israelites. And they went down to a valley where they used to go and do what? And fight. Do you remember when we were kids? I remember we used to, when we want to fight, we would go and draw a line. Hey, ruka hapo. Kama utaruka hapo, tutaona. And one group would stand on that side and the other group would stand on this side, and we would be like, we are all ready to do what? To fight. But how? We had to choose one person to go in front so that that person can jump over the line, and them also they would choose another person who would come forward and jump over the line to our side. And when we have crossed the lines, when these two start fighting, then all of us would go and do what? And start fighting. Fighting is not a good game. It can hurt people. It can hurt you. It can hurt your friends. But in this case, the Philistines were the enemies of Israel, and they had to go and do what? They had to go and fight. So they drew a line, and they were there was a valley between them. A champion named Goliath, who was from Gath, came out of the Philistine camp. He was over 9 feet tall. Imagine 9 feet tall. Ha! Mtu wa 9 feet tall anatoshana aje? Si ni kama hapa on the roof. Okay, I can believe that. Yes, he had a bronze helmet on his head and wore a coat of scale armor of bronze weighing 5,000 shekels. On his legs he wore bronze greaves, and a bronze javelin was slung on his back. His spear shaft was like a weaver's rod, and its iron point weighed 600 shekels. His shield bearer went ahead of him. Hey, have you heard that? This man, I can imagine his helmet alone. Helmet inakaa kama ile sufuria kubwa madhe anapikanga nayo ugali pale home. Anavaa hiyo, na imagine ilikuwa kilo ngapi? Karibu kilo almost 57 kgs. Do you weigh 57 kgs? And you? You know me, I weigh more than 57 kgs. Maybe me, I was what he was putting as a shield. Hey, this guy, he was mighty, a giant. Can you imagine the shoe? What shoe number do you wear? 2. Oh my. Me, I don't wear such a big shoe like that. But now, if you wear that kind of a shoe, hey, my friend, then you must be in for trouble. Now, where were we? We were in 1 Samuel 17. Okay. I want us to skip from there and go to verse 10. The Philistines said, and this Philistine I'm referring to Goliath. This day I defy the ranks of Israel. Give me a man and let us fight each other. On hearing the Philistines' words, Saul and all the Israelites were dismayed and terrified. Imagine a whole king and his people. Whenever they heard that giant speak, they were all scared. All of them were scared. And they were so terrified because they were seeing this man was such a giant. He was towering over everybody else. And he would come out there, and I can imagine with pride and all the mapedo anakuja anasimama hapo anasema call somebody there, give me somebody. Hiyo style yetu tu ilikuwa ya leta mtu wenyu na sisi tulete mtu wetu. Tukuje tufanye nini? Tukuje to fight. And when they heard that, they were so scared. Even the king, he was scared. We jump that one, we go to verse 16. For 40 days, the Philistine came forward every morning and every evening and took his stand. Imagine 40 days. Kila siku 40 days, 1, 2, 3, 4, 40. Na anasimama asubuhi na jioni. Na anasimama hapo anatangaza, nani? Tumeni mtu, tumeni. Cheki tu muscles. Tumeni mtu to fight. And they were always scared for 40 days. So then, the story goes on, and we get to a place on verse 17, where David's father, his name was Jesse. He had 3 of his sons in that war that the Israelites had gone to. And he missed his children. And you know, sometimes when parents miss their children, they do anything. They can, how many of you are in boarding schools? Did you used to have visiting days? Can you imagine when visiting day approached Mazi ameng'ang'ana na tu chapati na tu kuku hapo. And dad comes with a lot of soda, and when visiting day comes, what happens? There is so much for you to eat. So the same thing. Jesse had missed his 3 sons. So he went and asked David's mother to make some bread and make some chapatis na kuku na tunyama na nini. And then he came and called David, akamwambia, David, I want you to go and take these things to your brothers. You know they are out there in the war. And I want you to go and take it to them so that they can do what? They can eat. And tell them that I miss them, I love them, and I'm praying for them. Tell them not to fear. I can imagine all the good advice that dad used to give them. I know your dad, they do tell you, if they are going to work, especially those dads who work in the forces, when they are leaving, I'm sure they tell you, now you're the man here, take care of mommy and take care of the home and take care of this. He gives you good advice, yeah? So the same thing. So David took the food and he told the dad, I will go, daddy. I will make sure that I have given them that food, and I'll make sure that everything is okay. And so David left. We jump on to verse 20 that says, early in the morning, David left the flock with a shepherd, loaded up, and set out as Jesse had directed. He reached the camp as the army was going out to its battle position, shouting the war cry. Alifika saa zile wanatoka sasa waenda wajipange kwenda kupigana zile mavita wako nazo huko. Israel and the Philistines were drawing up their lines facing each other. Remember the story? Nyinyi mko huko, sisi tuko hapa. Tumechora hapa hivi, hakuna wakupita. Mwenye atapita vita ianze. Yeah. So David, he left his things with the keeper of supplies and ran to the battle lines and greeted his brothers. And just as they were talking, guess who came out? Goliath, the Philistine champion, stepped out from his lines and shouted his usual defiance. And you know who heard it? David. Leteni mtu hapa, ni wa show. The one who thinks he is stronger than me, tell him to come out here. I will fight him. And you know, David was like, who is that? What is he saying? Ati, he's telling the children of Israel, God's people, to bring out somebody to go and fight him. And so David was watching. So now I jump from there to where David, chapter 26, verse 26 says, David asked the men standing near him, what will be done to the man who kills this Philistine and removes this disgrace from Israel? Can you imagine? What will be done to the man who will kill this giant that is abusing God's people, this giant that is making God's people look small like this? What will be done to him? And they told him. And while he was talking to them, his elder brother called Eliab, in verse 28, he heard him speaking with the men, and he burned with anger at him and asked him, why have you come down here? And with whom did you leave those few sheep in the desert? I know how conceited you are and how wicked your heart is. You came down only to watch the battle. Imagine ya ameenda kuwapelekea chapo. Imagine munaletewa chapo na managu hapo na masamaki na mafishi na vitu zile tamu zote. Alafu mtu anakuambia nini? They are telling you ati umeenda hapo kujipendekeza, you want to watch the war. Little did he know. So David was like, surely. In verse 29, he asked, now what have I done? Can't I even speak? Do you know sometimes when you are facing these giants and you want to conquer them, there are some people who will slow you down. And they will tell you, shh, don't talk. We nyamaza. You want to conquer your giant of anger. But somebody who is telling you, sasa wewe, juu umekasirishwa na so and so, unamhurumia kwa nini? Unataka kumsamehe kwa nini? Wendo mchape, go fight that person. And you are determined to forgive that person and let them go free. But you see, there are always people who will try to stop you from doing what is right. Don't listen to them. Okay? So where we 30, he turned away to someone else and brought up the same matter. And the men answered him as before. What David said was overheard and reported to Saul, and Saul sent for him. It went mpaka to the king. Ati kuna kajamaa kako pale hivyo, kamekuja hapa kuleta tumikate kwa brothers zake, alafu unajua nini? Ati anauliza nani huyo jamaa, huyo giant ako pale. He wants to know what is going to be given to the person who will fight that giant. And imagine him, he's not even scared. He's asking that, but his brothers, they are trying to shoot him down. And you know, Saul said, hey, go bring him. So David was sent for the king. 32. David said to Saul, let no one lose heart on account of this Philistine. Your servant will go and fight him. Unaona venye ako na ujasiri. Your servant will go and fight him. And Saul alimwangalia tu, because he saw the impossibility. He did not see how this small boy ati anasema he will go and fight that giant. Can you imagine fighting a giant? You are tiny like this, like an ant, and you are saying you are going to fight a giant. Let me tell you, to Saul it sounded so impossible. It was not possible how this young boy could fight that big giant. But you know what? Saul replied, you are not able to go out against this Philistine and fight him. You are only a boy, and he has been fighting man from his youth. Wewe uko class what? Uko class? Unaonekana wewe ni mtu wa class 6 tu. Na huyu jamaa na yeye, he has been fighting people since he was in university. Na wewe unataka kwenda kuchapana na mtu kama huyu. But you know what? But David said to Saul, your servant has been keeping his father's sheep. When a lion or a bear came and carried off a sheep from the flock, I went after it, struck it, and rescued the sheep from its mouth. When it turned on me, I seized it by its hair, struck it, and killed it. Your servant has killed both lion and the bear. This uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, because he has defied the armies of the living God. The Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will deliver me from the hand of the Philistine. Do you see the faith that David had? He knew without any doubt that if he goes to fight there with God, he will win. And that is why he knew that he had to do anything and everything to make sure that he gets to fight this man. If anything, to bring glory to the people of God. Yes, so Saul told David, go and the Lord be with you. And I can imagine alimwambia na kinyorori. Unajua kinyorori? Ila kusema, hebu ona haka. Enda tu lakini Mungu akusaidie tu. You know, so he tried to fit David in his fighting uniform. See, we know majeshi wetu wa Kenya, the way they are, they all have uniform. Our police have uniform, the army have uniform, the navy have uniform. Yes, all our armies, they have uniform. So, you know, Saul tried to put his uniform on the poor boy. Can you imagine sasa wewe, unaenda unavalishwa hicho kiama, na maviatu zingine kubwa kubwa za chuma, alafu unapewa kisword mpaka una swing nacho hivi, you don't even know whether you can move. You try to move, he tried to move, he could not. There are things that when you try to fight the enemy with, you will not, because they are too heavy or they are not suited. Why? We are not fighting a battle of physical. We are fighting a spiritual battle, don't forget. When you try to fight anger, you don't go to the kitchen and you take a knife and you are like, now I'm going to fight the anger in me. Utajichoma choma. Si utajiua. No, don't do that. So here was David. He could not move. Hi, he told him, I say, Joe, just take your things, your uniform. I can't. It's going to make me drop. And so he removed all that. But do you know what? I loved that guy, because there is a weapon that David had that the King Saul did not have. And do you know what? That weapon, I have mine here today. It is a sling. You know a sling? Sling ni ile ulikuwa unachukua unaweka mawe hapa. Hiyo yao ya zamani ulikuwa unawekanga mawe kitu kama hii, alafu unaweka mawe here. And then you zungusha it like this. Ukambani tunaita kikudha. Hiyo ni ya kuchapa the monkeys who come to eat the maize in the field. He would put it here and he would swing it. And when he's swinging, it makes a noise. When you throw that stone, it can go very far. But you know what? Nowadays, tumeendelea sana, so we have what we call a sling. Can you see mine? Yes, a sling is made like in a Y-shaped form. And then unaweka mawe hapa. And then unaivuta. Unavuta tu vizuri kama ume-aim nini? Ume-aim at the enemy. Shwa! Twa! Unaachilia. Do you know what happens? That stone goes faster than a bullet, and it will hurt the person who is trying to hurt you back. But children, let me tell you, be careful with what you handle, because this is a weapon. And this weapon, it can harm, it can kill. Usiende kutengeneza yako hapo nje ati useme, niliona mama Kisumu alisema tutengeneze tufea, inaitangwa fea. Alafu hii ni ya kupiga douche. Unaanza kukaa hivi na douche. And then when the child who you have been wanting to fight all your life, hicho kibuli cha hapo estate, unajua siku moja, mama Kisumu alituambia tutengeneze fea. Unakuja na fea yako. Unamsho wewe. Unanichokozanga. Leo, wacha nikustue. Yeah. Before he can say, ati, unamwachilia moja. Kla! Be very careful. Okay. That is what David used. David decided, I am going to show you, you Philistine, you great giant, utaona. He went down. He said, I'm going to fight this man. I will fight this giant. And so, there he was. We are going to jump to go where? To go to verse 42. He looked, 41. Meanwhile, the Philistine, with his shield bearer in front of him, kept coming closer to David. He looked David over and saw that he was only a boy, ruddy and handsome, and he despised him. Aliangalia tu akaona, sasa haka ni kanini kanaletwa hapa, kanakaa tu kama akazinika kuku haka nitakachinja haka. Imagine. He asked, am I a dog? That you come to me with sticks? And the Philistine cast David by his gods. Come here. I will give you to the flesh of the birds of the air and the beasts of the field. And you know what? David was not afraid. You don't need to be afraid of the giants that come to your life. You don't need to be afraid of them. Face them. Yes. Today I will give the carcasses or the carcass of the Philistine army to the birds of the air and the beasts of the earth, and the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel. You can defeat a giant, and the whole world will know that there is a God where? In Israel. A God in heaven who takes care of you. Do you know? David just went down there, picked some stones, and put them on his sling. And he went to the giant. Na giant kinamchekesha, kinacheka hapo, kinamwambia, wewe wacha tuone what you can do. And David went. Na akamwambia, in the name of the Lord, kamutu, we kamutu. Na akamwambia, wewe, ni twa. Do you know? It hit him on his forehead and he fell backwards. He fell. David ran. Akaenda akachukua hiyo upanga yake. And you know the panga was so big. He cut off his head. Let me tell you the rejoicing. Oh, amevuka. Amevuka the line. When he crossed that line, let me tell you, the fighting was great. But he had defeated the giant that looked so impossible to do what? To defeat. Do you know King Saul, he was watching with his mouth like this. Huh? Because he couldn't believe that David, a small boy, could do what? Could kill such a big giant. What seemed impossible to man was very possible to God, because God gave David the strength to kill that man, that giant. And everybody in Israel was happy because he had made the name of the God of Israel to be what? To be glorified. What is so impossible in your life that you cannot do? What is it that you cannot overcome? That which seems impossible for you, it is very possible for God. And that is why today I chose for you a memory verse, and this is how I designed it. And it says, for nothing is impossible with God. Luke 1, chapter 37. Nothing is impossible with God. Luke 1, 37. I want you to write that one down. You'll find it in Luke 1 and 37. And before I go, I want to show you something. I have a piece of paper here, which I want to cut. Do you believe that you can wear this piece of paper like a dress? Do you believe? Do you believe? You don't? It looks small. Okay. I also thought that it would be very impossible to do what? To wear this little paper as a dress, until I discovered that there is a way. When we believe in God, things change, and we are able to wear paper that small into ourselves, and it will fit exactly in a nice way like a dress. Let me tell you, what we think is impossible for man, it is very possible for God. There is nothing that God cannot do. Look at it this way. Do you see the children of Israel? When they were crossing the Red Sea, they thought that they had reached their end. Because why? The sea was ahead of them, and the Egyptians were coming very fast behind them. And they were like, now look, Moses, you brought us here, now look, these people, they are going to kill us. Kwani there were no graves in Egypt where we could have gone and died? What is wrong with you, Moses? Now what shall we do? Look, these people are coming. And you know what? They were actually coming very fast behind them. But see what God did. He caused the waters to separate, and the Israelites to do what? To go through. And when those Israelites went through, The Egyptians were so thinking that they can follow the Israelites behind them. But what did God do? God closed down his sea and they were all gone. Now, do you think we can still fit inside here? Now my hand can fit. Okay. But I want it to go through. Do you think it can fit? Do you think it can? There's a hole there. It can fit. Okay. Anyway. Do you remember the story of Daniel? Huh? And do you remember the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? When they were thrown into the fire, what happened? Yeah? The fire refused to burn them. In fact, they never even smelled of smoke. Huh? And they got out of that fire. And they were very much safe and sound. Yes. Now, look at the story of Noah. Imagine. Huh? Noah built what? He built the ark. And what happened to him? When the floods came, Noah was safe inside there with all his family and all the animals. And Noah, because he listened to what God told him, he was done what? He was saved. The people who saw Noah building that ark, do you know they were like, hey, anatengeneza hii aendeshe on dry land. Ama watafungulia maji ya mtoni ikuje ichukue nini? Ichukue hiyo ark. But do you know what? When the rain started raining, they didn't believe that it could move anywhere. But you know what? It moved. I want to call my friend to come here so that I can see whether this paper really can go inside and go round. Because you know what? What we think that is impossible with God is very possible with him. So I want to invite my friend to come. Now, do you still think this paper can fit? I think it can fit. Hey, I think it can. I think now it can fit. I want you to look here so that you can believe with me that this paper can do what? It can fit. All right. Okay. Okay. Here I am. Can you see that? All the way down. And as it goes down, I will say my memory verse that with God, nothing is impossible. It has gone through. Can you believe? The way I am fat, it has gone through. Now I want to call my friend so that we see whether we can share in going through this. Do you think it will go through? Okay, come. Here we are. Come stand next to me. And so she will have, and I will be there. I'm also there. Now, there we are. Can the paper go down? Take it down from your back. Hey, the paper is going down. Hey, my friend, we are two, don't forget. And what was the size of the paper? Did you see the size of the paper? It has gone up to where? Up to down. I have removed myself. And she is out herself. Did you think that it was possible for that paper to go through us? The two of us? We can even go 3, even 4 people through this paper. Let me tell you, children of God, nothing is impossible with God. Okay? I want you to put that in your minds, believe that in your hearts, trust God for everything, because Luke 1:37 tells us the true thing, that for nothing is impossible with God. I want to thank you, and until we meet next week, be good boys and girls. Take care. When you make the sling, remember it is a weapon. Don't use it to harm your friends. God bless you. I love you, and God loves you. We'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.
We will go.